imagine you're your boss or you're your teacher and you're just droning on about something and no one's paying attention. How disheartening is that? No one's engaging, no one's asking questions. Like, imagine if you're a teacher and you actually catch a mistake on the board and none of your students would even, like, it's like a, a very simple mistake, like a math equation, like 2 + 2 = 5 instead of 4. And your students are so not engaged that they wouldn't even catch that. I can't imagine that feeling as a teacher or a boss and just like talking to people who aren't engaged and listening and actually care. So I think when you switch it like that way, it's totally a great thing to participate and be active in all settings because you make other people feel heard.
I think that for someone who was a teacher for a bit, that I appreciated the kids who asked the questions, and didn't matter if they were like off target, right? It was the idea that they were like, oh my gosh, something I said spurred something in them that now they're curious.
Welcome to Her Unshakeable Confidence with dynamic mother-daughter duo Simone and Olivia Knego, where they discuss the secrets of transformation and how to build bold confidence and unwavering resilience. From intimate conversations with inspiring guests to sharing their personal journeys of triumph and challenge, Simone and Olivia create a supportive space where every woman is encouraged to rise above her fears and love the woman in the mirror. Tune into Her Unshakeable Confidence and join this special journey of connection and growth. It's like catching up with old friends who inspire you to be bravely and uniquely you.
Welcome to Her Unshakeable Confidence. I'm Simone Knego.
And I'm Olivia Knego.
And today, Olivia has finished her first year of law school. So we're going to dive into that and see her thoughts of putting herself out there, doing all these things, and let's see how it went.
Yeah, I feel like the last couple of days I've been reminiscing a lot. I wrote a letter to my friend that I still need to send. It's sitting on my counter. But I was talking about friendships a lot. And in the last couple of weeks, honestly, the last couple of months, this spring semester, I have now that I'm solid in my, I have my close girlfriends here and I have my boyfriend here. I'm very established now. I've been trying to put myself out there into other friend groups and social situations and, be more of a social butterfly. And I've had a good time doing it. But one of the things that I wrote in my letter is I understand why my parents' closest group of friends has been the same since before I was born and how it's the same now. It's because it's going to sound bad after all this hype up. Some people really suck, but not a lot of them. Not all of them either. But it's hard to jump into friendship, I guess, is the, I just never know when someone's being genuine or not. And I think that's a really big struggle for me because I try to be very genuine in all of my conversations. So prime example is if I'm doing shitty at it in law school, I'm going to own up to it. But when other people say that, I don't know if they're lying or not.
They're just trying to make you feel better.
Yeah, trying to be sympathetic. But I don't do that. When I have a subject, I'm yeah, I understand this actually pretty fine. I can help. Or yeah, I am not getting this. And what do you want
Here we go.
me?
Back again.
Okay. I don't even know what I was saying.
You were talking about the fact that sorry, we had to pause because we had a little microphone issue.
She thinks my head's too big.
No, I didn't say that. I mean, well, earlier I was your head's too small. My head's too big because we're not now we're equal. Our heads are the same.
No, okay. Yay. I know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of genuine people in the world, and I think a lot of people are good, but sometimes it's hard to access that good right away, and it makes the first couple of social situations really awkward, and not necessarily awkward, but it's that was fun. Are we going to do that again? Are we going to be close friends? And so I think a lot of people after their first encounter with individuals are okay, well, I did that. That was enough, right? But I don't think it is. I'm realizing that friendship is more like dating than I ever thought it was. You don't know someone until the 5th or 6th date, maybe 3rd or 4th, depending on who you are. And so it's yeah, as long as you vibe on the first one, but you're oh, I'm not sure if there's an instant, where we'll be I say continue going with that avenue, because at the beginning of the semester, I did not have the same level or not level, but number of friends or people that I would consider friends now that I did. And it's honestly because I was you know what, I do like these people and I want to keep putting myself out there. But I think a lot of people after the first time are oh, that wasn't such a great first social encounter. I'm just going to close myself off and try a next group. But I really think social situations are like dating.
I think it's a really good point because that's why networking events are so interesting, because we are like, okay, we're going to go in and we're going to say who we are and what we do. Well,
Yeah.
is that what really matters? Right?
Exactly. And like, that's like kind of that first level of friendship. It's like, okay, so like, where were you raised? Where did you go to college? You know, like, what were your friends like in undergrad? What do you like to do in Nashville? And then like the second or third time around, it's like, okay, so like, tell me about your upbringing and like why you think this way. And like, tell me about like, well, I don't actually get into politics down here, but like, you know, sometimes it's like, tell me how you voted, or tell me like why you believe in this specific passion. And so I think a lot of people shy away after that first, like, well, like they're in business, or like they're in STEM and I'm in fashion. We could have nothing in common. But like, you wouldn't know that. Like, hello?
So what if you got rid of that first level,
I
that
wish.
first layer? So it's interesting. So at my, I do this now at every time I speak, is I do an exercise that I call erase, get rid of the just, erase the just, and not just and like, is it just?
Yeah.
But the way we talk about ourselves, right? Because we say things in a certain way because we're not sure who we're talking to, right? We're not ready to expose ourselves because, what if they judge us? So
I think that is the most, like, I think everybody puts out a different elevator pitch of themselves. I put in like quotes every time they talk to a different person. And it's like, sometimes when you're talking to a specific group of people, you want to tone down your accomplishments and you don't want to seem, at least for me, it's like, ooh, like, I wonder if they'll judge me or think I am going to judge them, honestly, because of like, this is my third degree I'm getting. Or like some people, it's like, yeah, I need to flex on them because like I'm as smart as them. I can keep up.
But do you think about it like that? Do you think like, I have 3 degrees?
No.
Okay.
I think like I'm still in school for 2 more years, and I just saw 2 people younger than me buy a house. That's crazy.
Okay.
I mean, like that's pure envy for me. I am so jealous of that.
You shouldn't be jealous. You should just be like, wow, that's really cool.
I mean, it is
something
cool
to aspire to, right?
Yeah, it is something to aspire to. But like, no, I don't think about it like that. But I think that when we go into social situations, our brains are already pre-filled with any preconceptions that we might have about ourselves.
Yeah. And that's why we have to talk about ourselves differently. So that's why I love this exercise, because I start with saying like, because we justify our lives, right? I'm just this, I'm just that. I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I'm just so-and-so's wife. I'm just getting by. Like whatever it is, the way we talk about ourselves, where it should be, I am. This is what I am, right? We should be proud of who we are. So I am a law student, and it's a struggle. Like, be honest about it. It's not easy. There's nothing about our lives that are easy. And I think that a lot of times people think like, you're the keynote speaker on stage. Well, yeah. And I have so many struggles as well. But I think the important part is that I share those struggles so that people feel like, no, okay, I get it now. Like, she's not up there to say, I'm high and mighty. She's up there to say like, here's what I struggle with. Here's what I've done to move past that. Here's how I think I can help you.
And I think at least in law school, because it's this like weird intersection between like professional life and a work-life balance, and then also like a social scene, because we are still in college. It's like, we have to act professional, but also like it's a very weird dynamic. Definitely different than anything I've ever done, because there are some people that I would see. That's totally fine. I find it boring too. There are some people that I would definitely see as though they're my colleagues. Like, those are my colleagues, those are my peers. We do not interact outside of the classroom, not in a bad way. It's not like anything against them. It's just like, but there are some like people that are like, like she's a classmate of mine. Like, it's just in like, that is such a difference. I don't know.
But you're not going to be besties with everyone. I mean,
that has been
time
a really long transition year for me. And I have realized even that, I don't even care what people think about me. Like, why do I care besides my group of like 20 people that I love and adore? Who cares?
Well, because if you're worried about what anybody else thinks, you can't be yourself.
Yeah. And honestly, I've spent a lot of time because I'm not great in new social situations. I'm like looking back in college, I was like, it wasn't this bad in college. Yes, it was. I wanted to transfer out my entirety of my first year. I hated it. Wanted to leave so badly. And then I made my best friend. Yeah. And I just like, I say this to Emma too, because Emma, she started, my older sister, she started her master's program like 3 months after I started law school, maybe 2 months after I started law school. So like that point, I was like already established a little bit in my friend group. And one of the things I told her, I was like, nothing that I say right now is going to stick into you, but like all you need is that one person. But like, I know how shitty that feeling is right now. And I think like once you get that one person, you keep getting worried of like, oh, but like, what do they think about me? That doesn't matter. You know what matters in law school? Not even what your professors think, because everything's graded anonymously. What matters is how you do in your interviews, how you gain respect in the classroom, maybe even that, how you do on your exams. And those are things that are pretty much solely up to you and not up to other people's interpretations of you.
And I'm going to take that a step further, because I think what really matters is how you feel about yourself.
Amen.
Right? So if you're worried about what everybody else is thinking and how you put yourself forward in the classroom, then you can't feel good about yourself, right? You're too worried about.
That is one of the biggest things in the classroom. I'm a question asker. I don't see the point. This sounds shitty. I'll still go to office hours, but like I am paying to be in that classroom. If we have time, I am going to get my questions in, because why not? I'm paying to be there. And that's what a classroom is for. Anyways, I had someone say to me recently, they were like, actually, I'm really glad you asked my questions, because I get nervous in class. And like, I always know that you're going to ask the questions that I want. And I was like, okay, that was kind to hear. But I do have this internal debate every single time I like try to limit the questions I ask, because I'm like, I'm so worried about what someone will think if I ask one more question. Why does that matter?
Who cares what they think?
What impact are they going to have on my life?
Right.
Because
affect your life.
And I got told like, oh, but you need to be kind and considerate to all your classmates. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is like, that's a different thing. But like one of the things was like, you need to be like considerate to your classmates and worry about what they think, because like future job opportunities. That I've realized recently is a bullshit answer, because if you go into a workplace and they're looking to hire someone and you're like, oh, I don't think so because they were a horrible person for like so and so and so, that's going to reflect poorly on you.
So this is really interesting, because I think a lot of people struggle with this, with the idea of that you can't speak out, you can't speak up because, oh my gosh, what will other people think? And okay, I'm going to call it as bullshit, because anybody who's judging you for asking questions, I mean, that's just ridiculous in itself.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, like every law student knows that there's a question master in the class. Surprisingly, not me. Weirdly enough.
Another question master?
Yeah. People that ask off topic or maybe very hypothetical related questions. But like, that takes like 5 minutes of class time, and I can like turn my brain off. Like sometimes if they're really silly, I'll do a little giggle, like, oh, that made me laugh during class. And then I'm like, why does it matter? She asked a question that was relevant to her in a classroom that she's paying to be in, where the teacher isn't really like, they build in time to all of our classroom sections. And if they didn't, I've been told before, come ask me after class. So we don't have time for that right now. Like, and that's an appropriate and that's a fine answer. But A, you shouldn't judge people for doing that. And B, like, no one really cares.
So let's expand this to the real world, because, I mean, obviously you're in a little bubble in law school right now.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is a problem throughout every
let's
profession.
Take it to the corporate workspace.
Yeah.
You know, if you can think about it as asking questions to your boss on how to improve your performance, or like, being willing to be like, I think there's a mistake in that. Like, I don't think that's right. And some people would be like, no, let me mind my own business. You know what? Like, I don't want to interfere. But the better thing to do would be to speak up or ask your questions, so everything goes accordingly and you don't have to start over.
But we're taught this idea that when you speak up, you're disruptive, and being disruptive disrupts flow.
You know, it's crazy.
And it's ridiculous to me, because if you see something that needs fixed, you should be able to say, here's how I think we could do things differently, without feeling bad about saying that.
I am a disruptive human being, and I don't think disruption's a bad thing. I think sometimes it can be, you know, obviously not a great thing, especially in like a quiet classroom setting. And I think, like, obviously in middle school and elementary school, very different scenarios where we're talking. You're not just learning what you're learning, like in the lessons, you're learning how to be an adult. But in terms of like a class, or like an upper level classroom, or like a workplace, I don't understand the point of being silent. And it's funny, like, you know, not back in my day. You guys always used to say when we were like too loud at the dinner table, to be like, No, this is what Dad would say. Back in my day, kids were meant to be seen and not heard. That is not how I was raised.
No,
I was meant to be heard and seen.
Yeah. And again, with 6 kids at the table, sometimes it got to be complete chaos because there wasn't an idea of a cue. You guys just would shout out shit and you just...
Don't get me wrong. Definitely something I am working on actively is making sure I raise my hand.
In some of my your hand at the dinner
table.
But
in bigger classrooms and waiting my turn, I think is definitely something I have still progress to learn as a 22-year-old. But disruption and throwing things off isn't necessarily a bad thing if it's correcting the course. I also wanted to change the perspective on it a little bit. Imagine you're your boss or you're your teacher and you're just droning on about something and no one's paying attention. How disheartening is that? No one's engaging. No one's asking questions. Imagine if you're a teacher and you actually catch a mistake on the board and none of your students would even a very simple mistake, like a math equation, 2 + 2 = 5 instead of 4. And your students are so not engaged that they wouldn't even catch that. I can't imagine that feeling as a teacher or a boss and just talking to people who aren't engaged and listening and actually care. So I think when you switch it that way, it's totally a great thing to participate and be active in all settings because you make other people feel heard.
I think that for someone who was a teacher for a bit, that I appreciated the kids who asked the questions, and didn't matter if they were off target, right? It was the idea that they were like, oh my gosh, something I said spurred something in them that now they're curious. And curiosity is the most important thing you can have, right? Is to be able to move forward and say, I wonder why that is. And disruption, I mean, again, in elementary school, it was disruption based on, it wasn't probably a positive disruption, but again, disruption is disruption. You want to make sure that every person is seen, they feel seen, and they feel heard because your opinion matters no matter what it is. And the problem is that we have been conditioned in our society to basically not speak up because we're so worried about being judged.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's the opposite of what needs to be happening at this point.
I think not that this ever matters. I don't think I've ever not been told if I start a sentence with a stupid question, this is a stupid question, there's no such thing as stupid questions. I've always, I don't think there's a single time that I've ever been told that. But my professor did give an anecdote one time about how they're almost near the end of the semester in class. And the student just asked the most basic question of how problems are set up. And it's can you imagine that understanding that you had? You didn't understand how to do this for the entire semester, and you just kind of almost wasted that time.
So ask the question.
Ask the question.
And don't hold on to
stupid
it.
thing. Also, I think that if you're really worried about it, ChatGPT is fine. It'll give you the answer these days. But people prefer when you engage with them directly. I think it's not only is it good for you, but it's good for the person. It's good for your relationship with a person. On a corporate level, going to your boss when there's an actual issue that you're oh, I don't know about this, let me double check it. That's the better response.
I think something that drives me crazy and that I've seen so much, and I'm sure I'm guilty of it in my past, is that, so I kind of have a dumb question. Well, don't start it like that. If you have a question, you have a question, but it's not dumb because you're curious.
Yeah.
If you want to know, ask the question, but don't say, oh, it's a dumb question. Now, it's one thing, again, what you've said is if the teacher has been teaching the same topic for the last 30 days and you're asking a question about day 1, maybe you should go back and look through your notes.
Yeah. And also that's probably a, not for the entire classroom question.
Right. But the idea that we need to premise our questions with, so this is a dumb question. I think this is a dumb question.
One of my professors always says, why are you self-reporting?
Yeah.
So it's why are you self-reporting right now?
That's a good way of saying it.
Fair enough. Yeah. I feel maybe the only dumb question is
the question you didn't ask.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, I can't even think of a dumb
This is a question you didn't ask.
Yeah.
If you're not willing to put yourself out there and ask the question, that in itself is a failure because, and again, failures are stepping stones. So I don't look at it like as
No, I mean,
negative,
you
but I'm
learn
like,
from everything.
gosh, just put yourself out there. And if you're curious, ask the question. And if you think it's going to help someone else as well, ask the question.
And I think a lot of girls my age and that are very similar, and honestly, not even my age, just women in general, get told to like, I remember there were several times in my life where I was given a limit on my amount of questions, or like, oh, you're too
What?
curious.
What?
Yeah, like at summer camp and stuff like that.
Oh my
And it's
gosh.
like, that's, you think those in the back of your head because you have those moments, but like those are just people who are impatient and not worthy of being educators or leaders.
Well, they're there and they're not willing to put in the effort to do things. So why are they even there? I mean,
and I think that maybe a lot of those experiences haunt men and women, but I think probably women majority, just because that's how things end up. And they shouldn't. Like, just because I think that we rely so much on the negative experiences to fuel our perceptions of the world rather than the positive experiences. Like, I think about that one moment where I was like, okay, no more questions today, like back in like third grade. But how many times throughout law school I've been like, actually, that was a really interesting and engaging question. Probably more than 10. And I don't think about those ever.
Yeah. So, okay, you've finished your first year, which yay, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So, what are the top 3 things you think you learned from this year, and what are the top 3 things you wish you would have known before you started?
Known before I've started, I think is probably easier.
Okay.
I
think the friendship thing is always a thing with you. And I think that's true for so many people.
Yeah.
I mean, even Noah going off to college this summer, his biggest concern is that he's not going to meet friends. And that's like a killer. I think like we live in such a crazy society right now where everything is on social media that face-to-face interaction is really tough.
I
don't want to answer for you. So give me your top 3.
No, the hardest or the things that I'd known going in is that like I wish I'd remembered how difficult my freshman experience was in making friends, and remembered that like it takes time. Like it's not going to be instantaneous. It takes time. Remember that not everyone you meet is going to be your cup of tea, and that's okay. But you still should be kind and considerate and respectful. And I think that was a big thing to me coming from New York, where it's very blue, very like, MAG is not even in the name, to the South, where, I mean, especially in Nashville, the views are very diverse here. So I think that's definitely one of those things that like I had some biases going in, just because of my college experience and like how I kind of, grew up in my early or late teens, early 20s in that sense in New York. And that like the professors are the most important part. And they're not just like normal college professors that have, because the college professors, so I went from a very small high school where you could have the most meaningful conversation with your high school teachers. And then college, okay, I don't think I know a single one of my college professors now. Law school is more like high school was. I know my professors. Cool. I like dropped off thank you notes to them this semester.
Wait, I want to talk about that as soon as you're done with this.
Oh, okay.
That's a big deal.
Yeah. I know I want to keep active conversations, engaging with them. Like I like talking to things like outside of like the law. Well, I mean, all of it's related to law, but like outside of just like the content classroom. So I think if I had prioritize, or if I learned to prioritize or know more that like these people are actually here to help me and they're not just people that are trying to get paid, because that's what college professors, at least the ones that like, some of them were very genuine, but in the end of the day, they have so many students versus in law school, they didn't. What was your other thing? You said 3 things that I know now.
Well, 3 things that you wish you would have known and 3 things that you learned.
3 things I've learned, because I thought you would like do differently. I don't do anything differently. I've loved, if I reflect on how, like, I've loved the journey throughout this. Like, I think it's been a lot of fun to like see what I know now. What I've learned is that it is so much easier to study for finals when you are studying every single day of the semester.
Oh, look at that.
Yep. I did not work that hard during that final season, this final season, because every single day, every weekend this semester, I spent like 7 to 8 hours plus updating my study guides. So when it came time to the actual exam, it was like boom, bing, bong, like so easy. that your first semester grades don't define you. And that,
I think that's a huge one.
what have I learned? Oh, the only way to go is up. And that's what I keep telling my friends. I was like, objectively speaking, like, when have you ever done worse at something the second time around that you tried
That's
it?
interesting. Yeah.
So for grades, like, the only way for us to go is up. We're all getting better at this.
Yeah. I mean, you're understanding what you're going through. You're understanding the system. I mean, it's a completely different system than college, than high school, and what the professors expect and what the professors are bringing to the table, which I think is
and
very
that
different.
is the most interesting part to me, is that, like, I had a professor this semester that his career, he was the district attorney of Nashville for 30 plus years. So when we would talk about some of the criminal cases, he'd be like, yeah, I prosecuted that one. That is insane. Like, that is crazy. The way that they can bring in their real world experiences. I had a professor that did environmental law in San Francisco. And so a lot of our property classes, when we get into that, it was so cool to hear the real life. Okay, like, this is what the textbook says, but, like, in actuality, in the way we practice it, this has pretty much been cut out of the law, but you still have to learn it for these purposes. And that is the most interesting part, is that, like, this is the first time that I'm okay learning to learn, even though I know it won't be the most practical in the real world.
Which
you wanted to ask me about my thank you letters.
Yeah, because so I always sucked at thank you letters. Like, my parents were like, "Oh, you have to write a handwritten thank you letter."
And I suck at them too, by the way. It took me 7 months to do my thank yous for my bat mitzvah. So This is not something I'm good at. However,
but I love, let me say before you get started, I love getting a handwritten thank you letter. And there was a guy who was the head of cabinet, There was the head of cabinet, David Kessel. He would always write a handwritten thank you note. And that meant a lot. It means like he really cared. He took the time to acknowledge something that I've done. And it's more than just like, thanks, great job, right? It is.
Yeah.
It takes a lot. Now, I can tell you, I will probably never write handwritten thank you notes. Not because I don't want to, but because I feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many other things to do. But when you decide to take the time to do that, I think that it's very powerful.
Yeah. So I wrote one for 2 professors. One of the professors is my advisor. And I honestly kind of talked about this conversation. And one of them helped me a lot with my, like, speaking abilities and, like, my confidence this semester. And so I was like, not just like, this was a great class, but it more of like, when I went into law school, like, after the first semester, my confidence was at an all-time low. And because of the experience, the opportunity you gave me, I have not been able, like, feel like I'm doing good now. And then one of them was like, I know I ask a lot of questions, and thank you for being appreciative and respectful every single time and answering all of my questions completely. Because, like, yeah, I know I take up a lot of time in class. Like, I know I do, but, like, none of them have ever, like, been, like, rude about it, or like, oh,
well, it's because you care.
Yeah, and I think, like, well, it's nice to have people that care about you. And it's not just like, oh, what's the pass rate in my class is going to be? It's like, I'm really struggling in this subject. Okay, come see me after class. Let's run through everything. Or like, I'm really confused how I like this. How is this going to play into the real world? They're not just limited to the classroom conversations. I can talk about things like, I'm so stressed for my future. Let's talk about it. And it feels more like high school in that way. A lot of things about law school feel like high school. But that is like the best part, in my opinion, about it, is that the relationships are so similar to what I had before when I was, a senior or a junior in school. And it's just, I don't know, it's really impactful to have someone care about you like that when they have no reason to.
So how do we take this to the real world, right? I mean, you live in a little bubble right now because you're in law school. So, like, this same idea of how we move forward in certain situations when you're scared to ask the question, you don't feel like you're worthy, like all these different things. So what do you think?
I think there is a lot of carryovers between, real world and the little bubble I'm in. I think, like we say, like every episode, but like just being genuine is so important, because when you're not genuine, and this is what I was saying earlier, I can tell, and I don't necessarily want to be friends with you because I can feel that you're not telling me exactly, like, I feel like there's a barrier up, and I don't know if I wouldn't spend the time to do that a
Right.
lot of the times. And it makes me feel like, oh, she must not want to, or he must not want to talk to me. I'll move on. So I would remember that. And I feel like if you just change your thinking to like, what you're doing is helping others and it's not just serving you. Because I think a lot of people get bogged down by the idea of like asking questions or like speaking up because it's like, well, this is only for me. But it's for not only like your colleagues and your peers in that sense, but it's also for your boss or like, showing the speaker the speech that you're at that you're super engaged or whatever. Or even like talking to your kids, like show your kids that you just listened to the presentation they practiced on you. Show your kids that like you're keeping up with their assignments and such by like just asking basic questions. And I think the big takeaway from the professors is like treat people the way you want to be treated. And we were never, I talk about my friend Gracie and I, we talk about this a lot about how we weren't raised in a household that was like respect your elders. It was like respect the people that give you respect. Both of us were raised in that similar way. And I'm not saying I'm saying like be disrespectful to the people that are disrespectful to you, but rather be respectful to people so they're respectful to you back, and you have this like mutual understanding of kindness and respect and like being a good person.
And that idea of, so I watched a movie the other night, okay?
Which movie?
And it's called The 6888.
Okay.
So it's about the only Black female battalion during World War II. So there's
Oh, that's dope.
855 of them. And like they want to join the war. They want to make a difference for their country. And so they finally get assigned to do mail backlog. So there was a backlog of like 17 million pieces of mail. So people back home weren't hearing from their kids who were off to war, and their kids who were off to war weren't getting letters of reassurance. So like morale was at an all-time low. 17 million pieces of mail. It could have been even higher than that. Anyways, so these women were assigned to do this. Now they came in, they were put in like a shitty situation with an old school, and they cleaned it up and they did all the things, and they were able to turn it around. And they got so much negativity. So from the men running the different, again, I know nothing about the army, the military, but whatever. Like the white men who are running the stuff were basically telling them that they're worthless, like they're not doing their job. And there was one scene where the woman who was in charge of that battalion, basically the one man said to her, like, you suck, like you're gonna be gone. Like you guys are all being sent back. You're doing a shitty job. And she said, she gave this unbelievable speech about how no, they were not going to step down and they were not going to be told this. Like it was like, and she stood up for the 855 women in that room, saying that like we are working our asses off to do this. And so he walks away, and then she leaves. And later they ask her to come back in the room, and nobody's working. And she's like, get back to work. And they wouldn't get back to work. And so she comes back, get back to work. And they're just all standing there. And finally she's standing there and they all start clapping because she said what all of them wanted to say, but she was their voice, right? Like she said it. And guess what? They cleared that backlog. They were given 6 months to do the job. They cleared it in 3 months. 17 million pieces of mail where people finally heard from their families and had that motivation to kind of move forward. So anyways, those ideas of that, when we're feeling like that was a really long story. Sorry, because I should have had the details first. But that idea when we're feeling like we can't move forward or we can't ask the question or we can't speak up, like we have to speak up because we never know how our voice can impact the people around you. And sometimes the people around us need our voice to be able to move forward. So I think we have to remind ourselves of that all of the time. That's my 2 cents for the day.
Okay. I thought it was good.
Thank you. Okay. So confidence tip of the week.
Oh, are you doing that first, or you want to do my calendar first?
What do you want to do?
Oh, you can go first.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Confident people aren't afraid to ask questions. Asking questions isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of self-assurance. It means you care about getting it right more than looking like you already know. So speak up, raise your hand, and remember, curiosity is a strength, not a flaw.
That was great, Mom.
Right? It's huge. Like, be curious, ask the questions, and don't worry about what anybody else is thinking, because if they're judging you, then they're not truly curious. And the point is to be able to ask questions that help the people around you and to help yourself.
Amen.
You're yawning now too.
You know, what
tiring.
can I do?
It's tiring.
Okay, so it's not working. Now what? That's my quote for today.
So it's not working. Now what? You ask the questions. That's what happens now.
Yeah.
Right?
We get back on that horse.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when something falls apart, you don't just say, oh, I give up. You say, how could I do it differently? What could I do next? You ask the question so that you can move forward.
Amen.
There we go.
Okay.
So thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Her Unshakable Confidence. Always remember, you are unshakable.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Her Unshakable Confidence with Simone and Olivia Knego. We hope this episode has made your day just a little bit brighter and given you the inspiration you need to confidently go about your week. Always remember to be authentically you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And feel free to connect with them on Instagram at Simone Knego and at Olivia Knego. Till next time.